Hello, good morning, everybody. My name is David Sampedro. I am an attorney with the law firm of Panter Panter and Sampedro over in Pinecrest, Florida. And we like to say to let us help you, let's represent you and your family. And we've been involved in the community for many years. Tell you a little bit about our office and the history of our office. It was started by Brett Panter back in the 90s. 1991 is when he graduated from law school, and soon thereafter, his brother Mitchell Panter joined him, and they started a law firm of Panter and Panter. I joined them in 1996, and fast forward a little bit, a couple more gray hairs on my face, and it's here we are in 2021. And the law firm is Panter, Panter, and Sampedro. We've always been involved in the community. We've always tried to give back to the community, whether it's the local community or the legal community. And we often get phone calls from prospective clients who are calling or inquiring into an area that we do not practice. We limit our practice to the area of personal injury. We help people who've been hurt or injured. Maybe they've had a family member who've been hurt, injured, sometimes killed as a result of the negligence of another person or another company. But there were a lot of calls that we were getting in areas of laws that we did not practice. We did not have an area of expertise. So probably about, I want to tell you, it was about 12, 15 years ago, we started a referral network, and started off with a simple concept where we sent out postcards to members of our legal community. And some of those responded. We interviewed them and made them part of the Panter, Panter, and Sampedro referral network. And the idea was to make sure that our office would never say no. We don't do that, or we don't know anybody who does that when somebody would call us in an area of law that we didn't practice in. We wanted to make sure that we would be able to refer them to somebody else, another expert in a legal area that we did not necessarily focus in, and tried to make sure we had people from all over South Florida. We have members in Dade and Broward predominantly, but certainly other members, and these individuals collaborate with not only our office but with one another, and it gives them the opportunity to refer business back and forth amongst the various members in the network. It also gives them the opportunity to seek support, and it might be information about either a new area of law or getting to know an attorney in a different area. And we've tried to encompass every area of the law. And as a further step of that collaboration, we wanted to bring it out to the community and introduce different individuals who practice in different areas of the law. And today, I am joined by one of those individuals, one of our first members. She was part of the original referral network. Patu practices in immigration law. Say hello, Patu.
Good morning, everyone.
And Patu, you did say a little bit about you practice in immigration law. Is that correct?
Yes, I am a sole practitioner.
Okay.
I have a boutique style type of immigration practice in downtown Miami.
All right. And tell us, how did you get involved with the referral network? And tell us a little bit about that, how you first learned about it, how you joined it.
I was one of the first ones who got the postcard, the
Okay.
original postcard.
Right.
And being a sole practitioner, like you said, like it's hard to, you develop a relationship with a client, and sometimes, we become their go-to
Right.
person. And I've experienced the same situation where people would call me, like I represent a lot of foreigners, and they come here and they open businesses and they try to immigrate to the United States, and they would call me, I've been involved in an accident, I have a legal issue, a commercial issue, and I at first, I really didn't have people to refer them to, and I felt that, I need to get more involved. Although at that time I did a lot of networking.
Sure.
So as a matter of fact, we met in one of
Correct.
the.
Correct. I
But
seem to remember 2005, 2006. We met, we had lunch with the office, we introduced you to the network, and you joined, I think, way back then.
yes, and then I called and I think you guys had, like the introduction
Correct.
dinner, whatever it was, and it's been a great experience to be
And
part of the network.
have you had an opportunity to either receive referrals from the network or give referrals or collaborate with other attorneys in different areas of the law?
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, I've had sometimes when it's an area when it's not my area or a different area, different state, through the network, I've been able to get to attorneys who've been able to help my clients. So it's been a very positive experience for me, that's for sure.
Great. I'm very glad to hear that. I'm glad that we've been able to help with that. So you mentioned a little bit about that you had a boutique style immigration practice. Well, tell us what you mean by a boutique firm, and tell us a little bit about your immigration practice. Maybe give us an example of a typical case that you would work on.
Yeah, I love what I do to begin with.
Good.
And so basically, what I mean by a boutique practice is that, I give individual attention to my clients.
So that means if they call the firm, they're going to talk to you. They're going to talk to the attorney.
Yes, they first, speak with my
Of
assistant,
course.
and it depends on where they come from. Sometimes I offer like a 15-minute bonus consultation,
Uh-huh.
because in 15 minutes, basically, at that point, I can have an idea if it will be worth it to have a formal consultation,
Right.
or if it's something that I don't think the person has a case. So I've been doing that since 2020 with the pandemic. That was
Right.
a way that I could adjust. But basically, yes, I'm the one that basically deals with the client.
Okay. All right. Great. So, and give us, I mean, immigration law, I guess that can mean, obviously it's trying to immigrate to our country, the United States, but there's different types of individuals. Some might want to do it because they're trying to escape economic hardship or personal relationships, join their families, other have business interests. Tell us a little bit about a typical case that you might handle.
Well, I've been doing this for quite a while. So basically, when I first started, I did, at that time, I was working on asylum cases, political asylum
Okay.
cases. And I started backwards because I started doing appeals so I could see what other attorneys maybe had missed, what, Monday morning quarterback type of
And
situation.
when you say political asylum, individuals who may have been persecuted in their home country or their native country for political reasons.
Right, humanitarian type of relief. And then from that, I migrated a little bit towards business immigration, which became the bulk of my practice for a while.
And how's that different to business immigration?
Um, well, different types of clients.
Okay. So are these individuals who are coming maybe because they work for a large corporation who want to come over here, maybe an internationally well-known chef?
Sometimes,
Okay.
sometimes all of that, artists,
Artists. Okay.
um,
Athletes, perhaps, who.
athletes, or persons who are, executives, or they own companies abroad and they want to start a business here, and they basically, can be transferred here to manage the business, as executives or managers.
Okay. And I'm assuming if they inject some money into the economy, for example, hire individuals, start a company, that's something that might be considered
Yeah,
in the immigration process.
investors,
Okay.
yes, yeah, now, like persons who have expertise that, could be useful here. They'd like to bring that expertise here and work in that field. So those are, and then back to family-based immigration. Like someone who marries a foreigner,
Well,
and
let's talk about that a little bit. So, can someone who comes to the United States, possibly as a tourist, and they never go back to their home country, you often hear about this, and you hear that they fall in love and get married. Sometimes oftentimes it's legitimate. Sometimes it can be illegitimate, but they marry an American citizen. Can that person expect to be granted asylum or get residency here in the United States?
sure, like the U.S. citizen can petition for the foreign beneficiary. If
Okay.
like for instance, the law excuses if the person comes here and overstays, the petitioner can file for the spouse. Uh, and even same-sex spouse,
Okay.
and petition for the person to come and live in the United States. What sometimes people don't want to understand is like basically there's a two-part of the the process.
Okay. Tell us about that.
The first part is the right of the U.S. citizen to petition for the spouse.
Okay.
And the second part of it is that the person needs to be admissible to the United States.
How does that determine?
So basically, let's see. I'm going to give you an example because let's see if you marry a foreigner.
All right.
And you petition for the foreigner, and the first part of the process gets approved. Okay, you have the right to have your spouse here. Okay, but then that's the second part of the equation, which is the admissibility of the beneficiary. So let's assume that the spouse was convicted of rape.
Wow.
Okay.
All right.
Then, even though you have the first part of the process was approved, this person may not be admissible.
Sure.
So,
may not even be advisable to marry that person, but okay.
But anyway, that I gave you like a
Sure,
a radical
example.
an
I
extreme
understand.
example,
Just
so
to
people
make a
will
point.
understand. But basically that's how it is.
Sure.
Yes, U.S. citizen can petition for someone who arrived in the United States as a tourist and overstayed their period, their
Right.
what's called their I-94.
Okay, and the I-94 being a tourist visa that they apply for, it might expire, but if they end up marrying somebody under certain circumstances, they might be able to stay.
Right. Yeah. The I-94 is basically like you get a visa on your passport. And that's basically an authorization that you can multiple entries. You can come in and out of the United States
during the period of that visa,
the validity of that visa. But then, Homeland Security will determine how long you can stay.
All right.
So, for instance, generally, when a tourist comes here, they get 6 months. They're allowed to stay here for 6 months. But the Customs and Border Protection will basically determine how long the person can stay. If you say something when you're at the airport and they feel like, okay, I'm going to give you 2 weeks, they can tell you that even though you have a visa for 5 years or for 10 years on your passport, they're going to determine how long you can stay. So what I meant was like, if someone comes here with a tourist visa and they get 6 months, but they don't go back after the 6 months.
Right.
So they overstay the
Okay.
period and they don't file for an extension or anything. They overstay the period that they were authorized to stay, and they meet someone 3 years later. So
Okay.
they've been here all this time as an overstay. Yes, assuming that the person is admissible, okay, then the U.S. citizen can petition for this person, and they
stay.
can file for an adjustment of status.
Are some countries are they treated differently? For example, somebody who might be coming from Great Britain or Canada, as opposed to South or Central America, for example, are countries treated differently by Homeland Security or INS?
That's hard to say. They shouldn't.
Okay.
But
at least not on paper. They're not treated differently on paper.
No.
I understand. Well, let's stay on the subject of family immigration. So let me ask you this. Let's assume somebody is here, they're a legal resident. Could they petition to have possibly their parent come from their home country, or a sibling, a brother or a sister? Once they've established residency here in this country, can it be a little easier for them to petition to have a family member to come to the country?
You mean if they have a green card?
Yes, of course.
Right. Okay, yeah. A green card holder.
That would be a legal resident, correct?
Right, a legal permanent resident cannot petition. They can petition for a spouse, a minor child, or an unmarried child at any age.
Okay.
But they can a legal permanent resident cannot petition for a sibling or a parent.
Okay.
You have to be a U.S. citizen to petition for a parent or for a sibling.
A sibling. So that legal resident with a green card would have to apply to become a U.S. citizen, and once they become a U.S. citizen, then they could go through that process.
Right.
And is that something that they can go to an immigration attorney such as yourself to help them with that process?
I get that question a lot. And I also explain to people that, I'm not trying to sell my services. I'm not saying you can go to whoever you want to go, but One thing that really it's a pet peeve of mine is
Okay.
like how sometimes even immigration and downplays immigration practice as to just completing
An
forms.
application.
Yeah,
Yeah.
an application, and they don't understand the implications behind it.
Right.
And so I advise people to always speak with an attorney because sometimes they just don't understand, how to answer questions. For instance, when I first started practicing, forms were very short,
Hmm.
and nowadays, forms are very long. And sometimes they have yes and no questions that people just kind of like answer
Gloss
no, no,
over.
no, no, and they don't understand. For instance, like, have you ever violated the terms of your non immigrant visa? You know, for some types of cases, if you've worked
Yeah.
as a tourist, you
You
violate
vote.
it.
Right.
And if you answer yes or no, and sometimes yes, people do come to me, oh, a friend of mine, because they always know somebody, a
Sure.
cousin,
Right.
a friend of mine, had no problem. What they don't understand is that, yes, sometimes these things happens that they don't pick up when the
Sure.
person
Right.
violated
Right.
their visa or whatever, or the terms of the visa. But then later on, it could become a problem.
Of course. And that's something, unfortunately, from what I've heard, is very prevalent in some communities that have a lot of immigrants, that they have people who describe themselves as Notarios, because that has a different meaning in certain countries and in Latin America than it does here in the United States. And they fall into that trap, and then they have to go to an immigration attorney such as yourself. And at that point in time, now the process has become a lot more complicated. Is that right?
Right. And they don't understand because a lot of these people that call themselves notarios, they're attorneys wherever they are.
Right.
Okay. So they even say, oh, I said, like somebody has a consultation and they present a case to me and I said, so, oh no, but so and so is an attorney. I said, an attorney where?
Right. They're not legally licensed to practice law in the state of Florida or anywhere in the United States, but possibly maybe in their home country they were.
Right. And sometimes churches, and like I said, they downplay immigration practice to completing a form,
Sure, I understand.
and they don't understand. And sometimes, things can get very complicated and sometimes impossible to, uh, I hate to say the word fix it, but to
To,
help the
to deal
client.
with the situation
Right.
and try to put them in a better position as they were before.
Right.
So let me ask you, because you do say it's a little confusing, and obviously we don't practice any immigration law. I've never practiced it, but in speaking with attorneys such as yourself, there's often you hear these phrases, and you just went through I-94, and you just said that, and you said that like it means something. But the other one I often hear is K1. What is a K1?
K1 is as a matter of fact, they have a reality show about that. It's
Okay.
like a fiance visa.
Okay. All right.
Basically, you have to be a U.S. citizen to petition. Let's see, you met someone, you traveled on vacation. Not you, because you're married, but
I am.
the
At least my
person,
wife tells me that.
the person married to went on vacation and met someone, okay, and fell in love.
All
And
right.
then the U.S. citizen comes back here, and then the K1 visa was basically created to try to make so the process would be faster for the
Okay.
person to get here. So this U.S. citizen can petition for this foreign beneficiary, for this person to come here and as a fiance, and then has to get married within 90 days.
I see.
Okay, and then apply for adjustment of status.
Okay, so they would use the K1 to bring somebody to the United States that they intend on marrying and having, obviously, a legal spousal relationship with.
Right.
All right, fair enough. So let me ask you this: how about somebody who is in another country and they apply for a visa and they get denied? Can that person reapply for the visa, for example?
I get that question a lot
Okay.
because when you're applying for a visa, you have to complete an online application with the Department of State. And of course, sometimes people hire people to do that for them, and they have no idea, you know, what happened, how they did it. So basically, when somebody gets applies for a visa, like I'm going to give you an example, like a
Please.
tourist visa,
Okay.
and the visa is denied. Sometimes the person immediately reapplies for it. So what I always try to do is to try to request, when somebody comes to me with that situation, I always try to request the file from the Department of State so we can see what happened and what was the reason for the denial.
And that's something that you're entitled to get the file from the Department of State.
Right. You get the file. It takes a while. But once someone has had a denied visa, I always like to get more information because sometimes the layperson doesn't really understand what happened.
Okay.
Because they get a denial and they don't know what happened.
Right.
Also, one situation that happens is like when someone is travels to the United States, and when they get to the airport, for some reason they are not admissible.
Okay.
And customs, the official there at the airport asks if the person wants to withdraw their application for admission, and they are sent back. And then the person says, oh, you can reapply for your visa, and someone like just immediately reapplies for the visa, without knowing exactly what happened.
And without consulting an immigration attorney.
Yes, because they're told by the officer, oh, you can reapply for the
Right.
visa, but that's it. So basically that's a situation that when someone gets applies for a visa abroad and they get denied, they don't necessarily the person is not necessarily barred for life. You have to investigate exactly what happened
to make sure it doesn't happen again.
Right, because I've had many situations of that, once we found out and we were able to reapply, sometimes we had to wait.
All right. So, and I know sometimes there are overlaps with immigration and other areas of law, such as criminal law, for example. And the situation that I've heard happen from time to time is that somebody's here possibly on a tourist visa, and they are accused of a crime, and they go back to their home country before the criminal investigation is complete, for example. And at some point in the future, they return to the United States. Can they be detained? How does this affect their immigration status? Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
That's actually a very common situation. Sometimes, young kids, they come here, they get into a bar fight or whatever,
Right.
and they leave before the criminal case is completed. So basically, then the person is, what do I do? So the criminal case continues whether or not the person is here. So sometimes the warrant is issued.
One aspect of it doesn't have anything to do with the other. In other words, the state attorney's office does not deal directly with the Department of State or Homeland Security. They don't always work together, correct?
Right. Sometimes they just don't know. The person is supposed to appear for a hearing, they bail out or whatever happens, and then a warrant is issued. Okay, so I've had situations like that in the past, including I've one guy was actually in Hawaii, and I remember this because I contacted the network.
Okay.
And I asked if anyone knew an attorney in Hawaii. And going from member to member, I was able to get to an attorney in Hawaii.
All right.
Okay, who cleared the warrant. Okay, and
because it was a criminal defense attorney in Hawaii, I'm assuming?
Right, and this been a lot of years.
The referral network expands all 50 states, apparently.
Right.
Wonderful. Okay, good.
Yeah, because people, we know each other. Oh, maybe, I have a colleague that actually moved to this state. You know what I'm saying?
Certainly, of course.
So basically, in that situation, the person was able to clear the warrant, and everything
and that in turn facilitates the immigration process.
Right.
Okay.
Wonderful.
Okay, so that's an example of where because you don't practice criminal law, am I correct?
No.
So, and since there is some overlap, you needed the assistance of a criminal defense attorney to be able to get rid of the warrant, exonerate the person, whatever they were accused of, and then you use that to facilitate the application process so they can come to the country legally and obviously stay.
Right, because then at that point, depending, how our work is. Nothing is simple.
Right, of course, of course.
But
it's not always the lawyer's fault, but that is true.
right.
Yes.
So basically, at that point when you're gonna submit a new application for a visa, then you have to explain, what happened. Because when you answer yes or no, then you get the chance to explain.
Okay.
So as long as they know, like when the person goes to the consulate for the in-person interview, the representative already knows what's going on. You know what I'm saying?
Sure,
And then
of course.
but if it's something that the person hides and then eventually they find out, let's assume that someone has a warrant and they applied for a visa and they lied and they, for some reason, they did get the visa.
Understood.
So then what happens is that when the person is here, at the airport, maybe at that time they're going to find out, oh, this person has a warrant. So yes, there is a risk that the person could be detained at that point.
Right. So I know we've been talking a lot about the personal immigration process. Let me jump for a second back over to the business side of it. Is that an area that you're familiar with as well, and that you do, in other words, help individuals who are coming for business purposes, as we started talking about? All right. And especially in South Florida, obviously, there's a lot of individuals, and there's a huge makeup from all parts of our country, not just from Latin America, but from Europe as well. Whether you're on Brickell or downtown, you can certainly get that flavor of it. So tell us a little bit about that. Can you give us an example of a business visa, why somebody who's a business owner may want to reach out to an immigration attorney?
Well, I'm going to be like, I speak Portuguese fluently.
Okay.
I learned Spanish here in Miami. It's not that good, but I speak a portuñol.
Okay. A little bit, enough to communicate.
Enough to communicate. So basically, a lot of Brazilians have dual citizenship. Okay. Like, for instance, they're Brazilian and they're Italians.
Okay.
So having an Italian passport qualifies them for an e-visa.
An e-visa.
Okay. Yes, which is an investor's visa.
Okay.
So basically, that person could come here and open control an American company and come here to develop the business here.
Start a business here in the United States, and obviously, hopefully, employ individuals and so on and so forth.
Exactly.
And that may help their process as well.
Yeah, that's one of the examples.
Okay. All right. And how about an executive? A lot of these large firms are coming over to South Florida. Maybe there's an employee that they want to bring, and there's an executive who may want to reach out to an immigration attorney to help bring a prospective employee.
They can transfer an executive, assuming that there is a company outside of the United States, a multinational, and wants to start a company here in the United States. There are some requirements. There has to be control, and there has to be a relationship between there are requirements, but yes, the short answer is yes. They can transfer someone to come here, work as an executive or as a manager.
Okay, fair enough. So, but at the end of the day, regardless of whether it's personal or business, I think the goal for many of these individuals who you seek your services is to become a United States citizen.
Right.
How long does that take? Can you help with that? Tell us a little bit about that process.
Generally speaking, you have to wait 5 years. If you're married to a U.S. citizen, you have to wait 3 years, but you can actually file the application, 90 days before the anniversary.
Okay. And then take a test, and is that a process? You still have to take an oral or a written test, or is it both to become a
Yes, you have to take an oral test unless you qualify for an exception, and an exemption. And but yes, it's a process that could take. Actually, right now they're moving naturalizations pretty fast.
Okay.
I just had an amazing experience. It's unusual experience where I filed for my client in the end of June. And believe it or not, she was a U.S. citizen with her naturalization certificate a month and a half later.
Wow.
But this was an unusual situation. It
course.
takes about generally, 4 months, 6 months. It depends. It depends on where you file.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Well, as we're getting ready to wrap things up, I know that can be a very complicated area of law. There's a lot of questions that we, I'm sure, have not addressed today. We've only touched upon a couple. So if somebody maybe had additional questions and they wanted to reach out to you, what's the best way for one of our viewers to communicate with you and get a hold of you, try to talk to you, try to set up an appointment?
They can call my office, 305-358-9440.
305-358-9440. Is that
Yeah,
right?
and if they mention this story, they can get like a bonus consultation in
Okay,
15 minutes. Yeah.
okay, a free consultation if they mention the Panter Panter and San Pedro Law Talk. So now you all know what you need to do if you want to reach out to Patu. And I'm assuming that's probably the best way they can do it. If you have any doubts or questions, you weren't able to get the number, which Patu is going to give it to us one more time.
305 358 9440.
All right. If you have any doubts or questions, you can always reach out to our firm. You can either call us at 305-662-6178, or you can look at our webpage, which is panterlaw.com, or you can just Google us, Panter Panter and San Pedro. I'm sure that you're going to get a top hit right there from our law firm, and you can reach out to us, and we can certainly put you in contact with Patu, and you can set up an appointment and possibly even have a free consultation so she can answer or address any of your concerns regarding immigration law. I'm sure she'd be happy to do that.
Absolutely.
All right, Patu, I want to thank you very much. I've enjoyed having your friendship for the last, it seems now 15 years. I think it's about 15 years that we've done it. Yeah. So I think we're both a lot
Time
younger
flies.
back then. Yes. But I want to thank you for taking the time to come with us.
Inviting me.
Of course. I appreciate it. I appreciate the educational tutorial that you provided with our viewers, and I'm certainly hopeful that somebody will go out there and reach out to you and contact you. So
I'm ready.
All right. Fair enough. Thank you very much, Patu. Great to have you. Thank you.
Thank you, David.
Thank you all. And we look forward to speaking to you again next week. And we want to wish you all a very happy Thanksgiving and happy upcoming holidays. Be safe and enjoy the time with your friends and family. Thank you very much.